The
or
first thing this drama
consequence of the
Moretti
world,
like if you want
more
long form,
is make you forget how
drama
to breathe.
therapy like this.
A chandelier is
glittering
on
over a
charity auction
and
in
tossed
Greyport,
alike.
so the
camera
algorithm
is floating
knows
through
we're not
all
done
that
here.
champagne and
I'll
silk
see you in the
softness.
next one.
And then it lands on Rosa Moretti's hands. Lace gloves, perfect manicure, a polite little clap. And you can tell the director is being cruel on purpose, because the sound mix lets you hear the faintest squeak of leather under the lace when she flexes her fingers. Like her body remembers something the room refuses to acknowledge. And then you get the line that basically sets the whole show on fire. Greyport still whispers her name. Not the Morettis name. Her name. Rosa. 13-year-old Rosa. The Reaper. The child who killed without flinching and then grew up into a woman who smiles for cameras like she was born to do it. Welcome back to Flick Flair. If you like reviews that are equal parts messy feelings and craft breakdowns, you're in the right place. And if you end up enjoying the way I spiral about this show, a soft little subscribe would mean a lot. And yes, we're doing full spoilers for Done being a lady time to shoot. Because this drama is built on reveals and reversals, and it deserves to be talked about with the knives out. What I loved, immediately, is how the show refuses to play Rosa as a secret badass in a cute, winky way. It plays her like a person who has spent 10 years trying to starve a part of herself that never actually died. The pilot is all surface. High society, charity boards, the Moretti Foundation, gala lights bouncing off the harbor outside those floor-to-ceiling windows. And then the editing keeps sliding these micro-flashbacks into the cracks. A muzzle flash. A hallway in cheap tile. A child's breath turning into fog in winter air. Not enough to fully explain, just enough to make you uneasy. That's the tone statement. This isn't a glow-up story. This is a relapse story, except the relapse is violence and competence, and a very specific kind of calm. And can we talk about the way Greyport is shot? Because it's not just a moody crime city. It's a port town with money, trying to cosplay as civilization. The harbor cranes are always there like skeletons. The streets look wet even when it's not raining. The rich neighborhoods are pale, almost overexposed, cream walls, gold frames, immaculate flowers. But the moment Rosa steps into anything that's actually real, parking garages, service corridors, the docks, the color drains into steel blue and bruise purple. This drama is constantly telling you, the lady version of Rosa only exists in rooms that are lit for it. Here's the basic chessboard. Rosa Moretti is the only daughter of Don Alessandro Moretti, the old-school kingpin who's been trying to rebrand the family into legitimate philanthropy while still controlling half the shipping routes in and out of Greyport. Rosa is engaged to Adrian Cade, golden boy Adrian, public-facing angel, the kind of man who says community like he invented it. He runs a legal aid initiative funded by the Moretti Foundation. He's handsome in that clean-cut way that screams future mayor, and everyone in their circle keeps calling him the bridge between the old Greyport and the new. And living under the same roof, smiling like she belongs there because she does, is Adrian's foster sister Celeste Cade, who was taken in by the Morettis after her parents died in a dock accident tied to Moretti shipping. So yes, the foster sister detail is not random. It's baked into the city's bones. Everyone is connected through some old wound. Now let me tell you what the pilot does that's so smart it's borderline rude. It makes you want to believe Rosa's reform is real. Not because the show insists, but because Rosa insists. There's a scene where she's rehearsing her speech for the gala, alone, in her dressing room, and she keeps stopping herself every time her voice gets too cold. She forces warmth into her face like she's physically pushing it into place. And the actress, Gianna Ramiz, who absolutely devours this role, plays it like someone learning to be human in reverse. There's this tiny shake in her breath when she says, "We're honored," like the word tastes wrong. And you think, okay, she's trying. She's trying so hard. Then her father knocks, and he says, "My lady," like he's teasing her, but his eyes are scanning the room the whole time. Don Alessandro is proud of her mask, because he taught her to wear it. Keep that in your pocket, because the show is going to weaponize that tenderness later. And then you get the closet scene. The infamous closet scene. I had heard people online screaming about it, and I still wasn't ready. Rosa is getting ready for bed. She's barefoot, hair down. The music is this soft piano motif that feels like it belongs in a romance. And she opens the wrong door. Or maybe the right one. The camera doesn't cut. It just slowly pans as she pushes aside a row of pastel dresses. And there it is, black tactical gear folded with military neatness. A ballistic vest. A comms earpiece. A hard case. And when she opens the case, click, click. The sound is so crisp it makes your jaw tighten. Inside, a pistol, oiled, clean, loved, like it's been waiting patiently. Rosa doesn't cry. She doesn't gasp. She just stares at it. And the piano drops out, replaced by this low, sabaz hum that feels like blood pressure. If you're thinking, okay, so she's going back to killing, yeah. But what the drama understands is that the moment of decision isn't when she picks up a gun. The moment of decision is when she smiles the next morning at breakfast like nothing happened. That's the sickness. That's the skill. That's the thing that scares everyone once they realize it's still there. And honestly, the first few episodes are basically the show daring you to underestimate the people around her. Adrian, the fiancé, is not just a clueless rich guy. He's observant. He's strategic. He's also emotionally curated. He speaks in the exact tones people like him learn to speak in, measured, gentle, always a little bit persuasive. There's a scene in episode 2 where he kisses Rosa's knuckles at a brunch with the city council, very public, very devoted fiancé. And then, still smiling, he whispers, "You didn't sleep." It's not a question. It's a warning disguised as concern. Rosa's face doesn't change, but her eyes do. That's the kind of microacting this drama lives on. And Celeste? Celeste is the character that could have been a cliché. The foster sister who's jealous, blah blah. But the writing gives her such precise social intelligence that you can't dismiss her. Celeste moves through Moretti parties like she's both a guest and a spy. She remembers everyone's drink order. She compliments the right thing. She stands half a step behind Rosa like she's honoring her. But she's always close enough to hear everything. There's this one shot where Rosa is taking photos with donors and Celeste is in the background, slightly out of focus, watching, not smiling, just calculating. The show keeps doing that. It places Celeste behind Rosa like a shadow that learned to wear perfume. Here's the question the drama asks early. And it doesn't ask it politely. What if Rosa's lady era wasn't healing? It was camouflage? And if that's true, who benefits from her pretending? Because the murders don't start with Rosa. That's another thing I respected. The city starts moving first. Episode 3 opens with a dockworker, Miguel, a guy we've seen at the Moretti Foundation food drive, getting shoved into a shipping container and beaten by men in suits who don't look like street muscle. They look like accountants who know how to break fingers. Miguel's crime is overhearing a conversation about a hit being planned. And the show doesn't glamorize it. It's ugly. It's cramped. His breath is loud. The container door slams, and the sound is like a coffin. That's when you feel the old Greyport waking up under the new Greyport's makeup. And right after that, Rosa attends a lace and pearls luncheon with the wives of Greyport's respectable families. The Carvalhos, the Hallstroms, the Devlins. It's all pastries and donation pledges, and the camera keeps lingering on their jewelry. Emeralds, rubies, little crosses. Wealth as armor. And Rosa hears a name spoken too casually, like it doesn't matter. Santoro, one of them says, with a laugh. The Santoros are a rival bloodline, old dog power. And the way Rosa freezes, just for a huff beat, tells you she's tracking a pattern. She's hearing something the others aren't. This is where the show's pacing gets addictive, because it doesn't sprint. It stalks. Every episode adds one more small confirmation that something is hunting Don Alessandro. A bodyguard switched out without explanation. A security feed that loops for 9 seconds. A familiar car parked across from the foundation office 3 days in a row. And Rosa keeps trying to handle it the lady way. Asking questions politely, smiling through it, pretending she's not scanning for exits. She tells herself she's protecting her peace. But the drama makes it clear she's protecting everyone else's comfort, too. Because if Rosa admits she's seeing threat patterns again, it means the Reaper is awake. Let me rehook you with the moment I knew I was locked in for the long haul. Episode 4, The Opera Night. The Opera Night is where done being a lady time to shoot becomes the show it promised to be. Don Alessandro insists on attending, public appearance, optics, power. Rosa is in this black gown with a high neck and long sleeves, very proper. But the costuming department sneaks in a detail that made me grin. The cuffs are structured like they could hide something. And the camera keeps cutting between the stage. Soprano singing about betrayal, very on the nose, but in a delicious way. And the balconies where Greyport's elite are watching each other more than the performance. Rosa notices a waiter with the wrong posture. That's the thing about being trained young. You don't notice faces, you notice movement. The waiter's shoulders are too squared. His steps are too even. And the show lets us sit in Rosa's perspective for just long enough that our stomach drops at the same time hers does. She turns to her father. He's smiling. He's enjoying the music. And she realizes he doesn't see it. Or worse, he sees it and thinks he can control it. The hit happens like a magic trick. The lights dim for a dramatic cue on stage, the music swells, and in the dark, a suppressed shot cracks like someone snapping a pencil. Don Alessandro jolts. Rosa's hand shoots out, grabs him, tries to pull him down, but the second shot lands. And then the lights come back up, and everyone is still clapping because they think it's part of the opera. That is one of the nastiest, smartest uses of sound in the whole drama, applause over murder. Civilization applauding while the old world bleeds out. Rosa doesn't scream. She doesn't collapse. She looks at her father's blood on her glove, lace turning red, and her face goes blank in a way that is genuinely terrifying. Not stone-cold badass. More like, her emotions shut off because the system is switching modes. Adrian is there, trying to get to her, yelling her name, but the sound dips like she's underwater. And then the show hits us with a flashback. 13-year-old Rosa, hair tied back, standing over a man in a basement. She's holding a gun with both hands because it's heavy. Don Alessandro's voice, calm, again. When we snap back, Rosa is already moving. She's not even thinking. She's hunting the shooter through a sea of panicking rich people. And the camera goes handheld, close to her shoulder, so you feel like you're chasing with her. It's breathless. It's messy. And the moment she reaches the service corridor, the lighting goes harsh and fluorescent, and Rosa's whole body changes. The lady posture drops. The Reaper posture takes over. And here's my personal confession. I got cold. Like, physically. I pulled my hoodie tighter, like that was going to help. Because the show doesn't make it cool. It makes it inevitable. Like watching a storm decide where to land. Episode 5 is basically grief as propulsion. The funeral isn't just a funeral. It's a political summit. Everyone shows up. Priests, politicians, rivals pretending to mourn. And Rosa is sitting front row, veil down, looking like a statue someone carved out of restraint. Meanwhile, Celeste is gliding around managing logistics like she's always been the true lady of the house. And Adrian. Adrian is doing this thing where he keeps trying to touch Rosa and then stopping like he's not sure if he's allowed, which is such a good detail because it shows you he's been loving a version of Rosa that might not exist anymore. There's a scene that's quiet but lethal. After the burial, Rosa stands alone in Don Alessandro's office. It's all dark wood, old world masculinity, cigars, maps of shipping routes framed like art. She opens his desk drawer and finds a ledger. Not just numbers, names, payments, dates, and tucked behind it, An old photograph of Rosa at 13, holding a gun, expression flat. Don Alessandro wrote on the back, "She never misses." Rosa's thumb strokes the handwriting like it's a bruise. And then she does something that, in a lesser drama, would be played as a dramatic "I'm back" montage. Here, it's almost domestic. She walks into her closet, pushes aside the dresses, pulls out the tactical gear, lays it on her bed. The show lingers on her hands as she checks each item. Not sexy, not flashy, competent. There's no triumphant music, just the faint click of metal and the rustle of fabric. She changes into it like she's changing into her real skin. That's when the title finally makes emotional sense. Done being a lady, time to shoot is a ridiculous phrase on paper. It sounds mem-why. But in the context of this scene, it lands like a wow. It's not, I'm choosing violence because it's fun. It's, I'm done performing harmlessness for people who use it against me. And yes, she shoots someone in episode 5. But it's not who you think, and that's where the writing starts playing three-dimensional chess. The first person Rosa kills as an adult isn't one of the big family heads. It's a middleman, Hector Salo, a private security contractor who's been quietly selling access codes to Greyport's elite. Rosa lures him using the Moretti Foundation as bait. She schedules a donor meeting in a warehouse space they're supposedly converting into a youth center. It's such a twisted use of a charity persona that I actually laughed a little in disbelief. Like, oh, she's sick, affectionate, terrified. Both. She arrives in a white coat, hair pinned neatly, and Hector underestimates her because that's what men like him do when they see a woman who looks expensive. Then she locks the door. The scene is lit by a single overhead strip light that flickers just enough to feel unstable. Rosa takes off her gloves, lace to bare skin, and her voice drops into this low register Gianna Ramiz uses only when Rosa is in predator mode. She says, "Who paid you?" Hector tries to laugh, tries to flirt, tries to threaten. Rosa doesn't escalate emotionally. She escalates procedurally. She lists the names of his accounts, his offshore transfers, his daughter's school, not as a threat, as proof that she already did the homework. And then she shoots him in the knee, not to be sadistic, but to stop the conversation from being about his ego. The sound is deafening in that empty warehouse. Hector hits the ground screaming, and Rosa crouches beside him like she's comforting him, and whispers, "We can do this the easy way." It's horrifying. It's also, this is the contrarian take I didn't expect myself to have, strangely honest. Rosa isn't pretending to be good anymore. She isn't pretending to be kind. She's being exactly what she is, and there's a grim integrity in that. Now, before anyone comes for me, like, "Are you endorsing torture?" No. The show isn't endorsing it either. It's showing you how a child trained for violence grows into an adult who uses the same tools on a bigger board. And it keeps asking whether you can ever truly choose a different self if your first self was built for war. Anyway, Hector gives her a name, Matteo Santoro, Don Alessandro's old rival. A man who wears legitimacy like a tailored suit but still runs Greyport's docks through fear. And Matteo is not just the villain. The show makes him charismatic in a way that is deeply annoying because you find yourself leaning in when he talks. He's introduced in a restaurant kitchen, of all places, white apron, sleeves rolled up, making sauce while his men discuss murder behind him. He tastes the sauce, frowns, adds salt, and says, "If you rush the base, everything tastes sharp." And then he orders a hit with the same calm. It's a thesis statement. He doesn't see violence as passion. He sees it as seasoning. Rosa starts targeting Santoro's operation piece by piece. And this is where the drama's revenge engine becomes more interesting than a simple body count. She isn't just killing. She's dismantling. She hits supply lines. She leaks ledgers to the authorities anonymously. She turns Santoro's lieutenants against each other by planting evidence in the right places. And here's the kicker. She does all of this while still showing up to Moretti Foundation events in pearls. The duality isn't Batman at night, billionaire by day. It's Predator at night, sacrificial lamb by day. Because her daytime persona is constantly being used to keep the peace among people who are literally plotting around her. And Adrian starts noticing the seams. One of my favorite scenes in the first half is episode 6, when Adrian confronts Rosa in their kitchen. It's a gorgeous set, marble counters, warm under-cabinet lighting, this fake comfort that feels like a showroom. Adrian is making tea. That's his thing. He makes tea when he's stressed, like he thinks the right ritual can fix the wrong reality. Rosa walks in late, hair damp like she showered somewhere else, and Adrian casually says, "You smelled like gunpowder." Rosa doesn't deny it. She just tilts her head, like she's deciding whether he's an ally or a liability. And Adrian, this is where the actor, Callum Wayne, really impressed me, doesn't play it as accusatory. He plays it as terrified. Not of her, but of what it means. He says, "Rosa, I need to know who I'm marrying." And she replies, very softly, "You've never asked. You've only assumed." That line hit me harder than any shootout, because it reframes their entire relationship. Adrian didn't fall in love with Rosa as a full person. He fell in love with the version of her that allowed him to feel like a savior. And the show is bold enough to call that out without making him cartoonishly evil. He's human. He's selfish. He's also genuinely in love. Those things coexist, and that's why it hurts. Then Celeste slides in like a knife wrapped in silk. Episode 6 ends with Celeste finding blood in Rosa's laundry. A tiny smear on the inside of a sleeve. And the way Celeste reacts is so controlled it's chilling. She doesn't freak out. She doesn't run to Adrian. She takes the sleeve, holds it up to the light, and smiles like she just got a gift. Because Celeste's whole thing is that she's always been the one who had to survive without power. Rosa was born with power. Rosa was trained for power. Celeste had to learn how to steal it. Let me tease what's coming next, because this is where people either fell in love with the show or started screaming at their screens. The foster-sister dynamic is not just petty jealousy. It's revenge with a long memory, and it hooks into the city's original sin. We find out, through Celeste's storyline, that her parents didn't just die in a dock accident. They died because Don Alessandro refused to shut down a compromised shipping lane after an inspection was bribed. The container crane malfunctioned, a stack collapsed, and Celeste's father was crushed. Her mother overdosed a year later. Celeste was taken in as a PR move and a guilt salve, raised in luxury that always felt like a cage. And the drama doesn't ask you to excuse what Celeste does with that pain, but it makes you understand the shape of it, which is so much more interesting than Evil Stepsister. Also, the show is sneaky about making you complicit. Because when Celeste starts playing her cards, part of you is like, of course she does. Of course she wants to burn this house down. The house was built on her family's bones. Episode 7 is the first time Rosa and Matteo Santoro actually share the screen, and it's electric. Rosa attends a Greyport Heritage Society fundraiser, because of course the crime families hide behind heritage. And Matteo approaches her like he's paying respects. He kisses her hand, old-fashioned, and says, "Your father was a man of vision." Rosa smiles with her mouth only and replies, "He was a man of many things." Matteo's eyes flicker. He knows she knows, and then he leans in and whispers, "I hope you don't inherit his appetite." Rosa whispers back, "I hope you choke." I swear, I paused the episode to pace. Because it's not just a badass exchange. It's a promise that the masks are coming off. And the way it's shot, tight close-ups, the parties sound muffled, their faces lit by candlelight like they're in confession, turns it into an intimate threat. This drama understands that the most violent conversations are sometimes whispered in rooms full of polite people. And then the show pulls one of its best early reversals. Rosa's first major move against Santoro backfires because Adrian interferes, accidentally. Rosa sets up a sting. She uses Hector's intel to predict a Santoro weapons transfer at Pier 9. She goes out in her tactical gear, alone, because she doesn't trust anyone. The docks are shot like a nightmare. Fog rolling low, sodium lights making everything look jaundiced, chains clinking in the wind. She spots the transfer, takes out two guards silently, and is about to plant a tracker on the main crate when police sirens explode in the distance. And you think, oh no, because Rosa didn't call the cops. Adrian did. We cut to Adrian earlier that day, meeting with Captain Sarah Wicks, Greyport PD's task force led. Adrian has been feeding her tips, trying to clean up the city the right way. He thinks he's preventing violence. He thinks he's saving Rosa from her family's gravity. And in a tragic irony that is just chef's kiss writing, Adrian's attempt to be the hero is what almost gets Rosa killed. Because the police raid scatters Santoro's men, bullets start flying, and Rosa is trapped between criminals and cops, both of whom would shoot her if they recognized her. This is where the action choreography surprised me. It's not overly slick. It's not gun-fu. It's frantic and ugly. Rosa crawls under a loading ramp, mud soaking her knees, and you hear her breathing in the mix like it's its own percussion. She takes a shot, misses, swears under her breath. Yes, the Reaper swears now, growth. And then she does this brutal thing. She shoots out a dock light to create darkness. The scene plunges into shadow and muzzle flashes. It's gorgeous and disorienting. Rosa escapes, but she loses the tracker opportunity, and Santoro realizes someone is hunting him from the inside. That's the escalation. The predator senses the other predator. And the moment Rosa gets home, she finds Adrian waiting in the living room, lights off, sitting like a man about to confess. He says, "I did something today." Rosa's face is still damp from fog, hair pulled back, eyes bright with adrenaline. She says, "So did I." And the space between those lines is the whole show. To people living parallel moralities in the same house. If you're thinking the drama is going to turn this into a simplistic love triangle with Celeste, it doesn't. It turns it into a war triangle. Celeste becomes the third point, not because she wants Adrian romantically, though she absolutely enjoys being chosen over Rosa whenever she can engineer it, but because she wants control of the narrative. She wants to decide who Rosa is allowed to be in this family. And she wants to punish Rosa for getting to be both princess and weapon while Celeste only ever got to be gratitude. Episode 8 is when Celeste makes her first open move, and it's one of those scenes that's so quietly venomous you don't realize you've been stabbed until the episode ends. Celeste invites Rosa to a sister's day. Shopping, nails, coffee, the whole performance. Rosa agrees because she's trying, in her own way, to keep some shred of normal, and because she underestimates Celeste's willingness to get her hands dirty. They're in a boutique that sells ridiculously expensive gloves. Yes, the show is obsessed with gloves. It's basically a motif at this point. And Celeste holds up a pair of black leather ones and says, smiling, "These would suit you better than lace." Rosa's eyes narrow. Celeste continues, "Sweetly, I've always wondered what you keep locked away. The part of you that scares people." Rosa says, "You don't wonder. You already know." Celeste's smile widens by a millimeter, and she replies, "Then why does Adrian still think you're harmless?" That's the moment Rosa realizes Celeste has been watching her, not just socially, but tactically. And then Celeste drops the real bomb. She tells Rosa that Don Alessandro was negotiating with Santoro before he died. Not peace. A merger. A consolidation. Don Alessandro was going to hand over portions of the port in exchange for legitimacy and political cover. Celeste says she found the emails. She says she didn't show Rosa earlier because she didn't want to ruin the funeral. Rosa doesn't react outwardly, but the camera pushes in on her pupils, and you can see the betrayal land like a physical hit. Because if that's true, then her father wasn't just murdered by enemies. He was murdered because of the games he was playing. And that complicates grief in a way this show handles with painful realism. You can mourn someone and still be furious at them. You can love your father and still want to spit on his choices. Here's another rehook, because this is where the drama stops being a straightforward revenge plot and becomes something nastier. The question shifts from who killed Don Alessandro to who benefited from him dying exactly when he did. And Rosa starts looking at the people closest to her with new eyes. The end of episode 8 is pure dread. Rosa returns home, goes to her closet, reaches for her gear. And the hard case is gone. Not the dresses, not the jewelry, the gun case. The room is untouched otherwise, which means whoever took it knew exactly what to take and exactly how to leave no trace. The show doesn't cut to reveal who did it right away. It just holds on Rosa's face as she stands in front of an empty space where her real self used to be stored. And then, in the hallway behind her, a floorboard creaks. Rosa turns slowly, and the episode cuts to black on the sound of a safety clicking off. And I need you to understand, at that point, I was so stressed I started doing that thing where you laugh because your body has no other outlet. Because the drama has now done the worst possible thing to someone like Rosa. It didn't just threaten her life. It threatened her control. So yeah, that's where we are in the story's first stretch. Don Alessandro is dead, Santoro is sharpening his knives, Adrian is unknowingly sabotaging Rosa with his justice, Celeste has gone from shadow to active threat, and Rosa, our lethal, grieving, socially polished reaper, is suddenly disarmed inside her own home, surrounded by people who love her, usse her, fear her, and don't actually know what she's capable of when she stops asking permission. And the wild part is, the show still hasn't shown you its meanest trick yet, because the moment Rosa gets that gun back, she doesn't just go after Santoro. She starts going after the idea of being owned by anyone at all. And the way the next run of episodes frames that shift, through lighting, through music cues, through the way Gianna Ramirez starts letting Rosa's lady voice crack at the edges, feels like watching a statue develop hunger. Rosa steps backward into the dark of a closet, hands empty, eyes scanning, and in the silence, you can hear the distant party music from downstairs like a life she's supposed to be living. She lowers her voice into something almost gentle and says, "Come out. If you're going to threaten me in my own house, at least look me in the eye when you do it." The floorboard creaks again, closer this time, and the shadow at the doorway shifts as someone leans in, and Rosa's posture changes, weight balanced, chin slightly down, ready to lunge. Because even without the gun, the Reaper is still a weapon, and the person in the doorway lets out a slow exhale that sounds almost amused before they say, "You always were dramatic, Rosa." And the voice is so familiar that Rosa's eyes flash with a rage that finally breaks the mask because it belongs to Celeste. Kade. And the way Gianna Ramirez lets Rosa's face do this tiny, violent shift when she recognizes the voice. It's like watching glass crack in slow motion. Because it's not just, "My foster sister stole my gun." It's the one person who lives in my house and knows all my exits has decided to test me in the dark. Celeste steps into the closet doorway, holding the hard case open like she's presenting evidence in court, except the pistol is in her hand, not the foam insert. She's wearing one of Rosa's pastel cardigans over a black slip, which is such a petty costuming choice it almost made me admire her. Like, yes, dress like the woman you resent while you threaten her. That's a whole diagnosis. Celeste doesn't point the gun at Rosa right away. She points it down, safety off, finger disciplined in that way that instantly tells you she's not a complete amateur. She's practiced. She says, "I didn't take it to hurt you. I took it to see if you'd panic." Rosa takes one more step back into the closet so the dresses frame her like curtains. And she says, very calmly, and Celeste's eyes flicker over Rosa's face, searching for softness, searching for anything she can call weakness. "And you didn't," she answers. "You never do. That's what's wrong with you." It's such a good line because it's half accusation, half envy. And the drama doesn't let you settle into one interpretation. Celeste is terrified of Rosa, and she wants to become Rosa, and she hates Rosa for being built this way. And Rosa, for her part, doesn't beg. She doesn't reassure. She doesn't perform. She just says, "Put it back." Celeste laughs under her breath and goes, "Oh what? You'll kill me? That would be convenient. Then you'd finally look like the monster they whisper about." Right here is where I thought the show was going to do the obvious thing. Rosa disarms her in a slick move, maybe pins her to the wall, blah blah. It does something better. It lets the moment breathe long enough for you to feel how intimate this kind of threat is when it happens in your home. Because Rosa isn't just calculating angels. She's recalculating family. Her voice drops even softer and she says, "If I wanted you dead, Celeste, you wouldn't be talking." And Celeste's face changes, just a flash, because she believes her. If you're wondering when the drama truly starts turning the screws on the foster-sister dynamic, it's the next sentence. Celeste tilts the gun toward the closet floor and says, "Tell me about the basement." And Rosa's eyes go flat. No confusion. No denial. Recognition. Which means Celeste knows about 13-year-old Rosa. The basement training. The first kill. The origin story that Griport turned into a rumor. That's the hook that pulls episode 9 into place. The show stops treating Rosa's past as spooky ambience and starts treating it as leverage. The episode plays like a psychological standoff more than an action beat. Rosa doesn't lunge. Celeste doesn't shoot. They talk. And it's like watching two people play chess with their trauma as the pieces. Celeste says she found Don Alessandro's old VHS tapes in a locked cabinet behind his liquor shelf, home movies. Except the home part is questionable. She describes a tape where a young Rosa is on a firing range, too small to hold the rifle correctly, and Don Alessandro keeps correcting her posture like it's ballet. Celeste's voice gets tight when she says, "He made you into this. And then he made you pretend you weren't." Rosa swallows once, hard, and says, "You don't get to say his name like you knew him." Celeste steps closer, and the camera shifts so the closet doorway becomes a frame inside the frame. "I knew him," she says. "He killed my parents slowly. He just didn't pull the trigger." And that's the moment, this tiny pause, where Rosa's rage changes shape. Because Rosa can dismiss Celeste's pettiness, but she can't dismiss grief. She knows what it is to be made into a weapon by someone you still love. She knows what it is to carry a death that isn't clean. And for a second, you see something almost like understanding in her face. Not forgiveness, just recognition. Then Celeste ruins it by making it personal. "Adrian doesn't know," she says. "He thinks you're delicate." Rosa's gaze flicks, involuntary. Celeste catches it and smiles. "I could tell him," she continues. "I could tell the police. I could tell the board. The whole city would finally get their story. Rosa Moretti, the Reaper, engaged to a reformer." What a headline. Let me rehook you here, because this is where the drama makes a choice that I did not expect from something with this title. Rosa doesn't shoot her way out of this. She talks her way out of it. And it's scarier. Rosa steps forward until she's close enough that the gun between them feels ridiculous. She looks at Celeste and says, "You want to expose me because you think it will burn me. It won't." Celeste's brows pinch. Rosa keeps going. "You expose me, and you expose the Morettis. You expose the foundation. You expose your own luxury. You'll be standing in the ashes with me, and you'll still be hungry." And then Rosa does the most chilling thing in the entire scene. She reaches out and wraps her hand gently around the barrel of the gun, pushing it down toward the floor. Celeste stiffens, but she doesn't pull away. Rosa's voice is a whisper. "You don't actually want to stop me," she says. "You want to be the one holding the leash." Celeste's eyes shine, anger, humiliation, something like desire for control. And Rosa lets go of the barrel, steps back, and says, "Keep it, if it makes you feel big. But understand this, you point it at me again, and I'll teach you what the basement taught me." Celeste's breath catches. Rosa turns, and walks out of the closet like the conversation is done. No dramatic slam. No threat screamed. Just that quiet, fatal certainty. The camera stays on Celeste alone, standing there with the gun. And you can see the moment she realizes she's not dealing with a heroine. She's dealing with someone who survived being made into a tool and decided to become a blade. Episode 9 ends with Rosa going downstairs and finding Adrian in the kitchen again. Because this drama loves to put its emotional fights in domestic spaces, and she looks at him for a long beat like she's trying to decide whether he's real. Adrian asks, "Are you okay?" And Rosa says, "No, just that. No softening. No performance." And Adrian looks like he's been waiting years for the honest answer. Now, here's where the plot engine kicks hard. Because while Rosa is battling Celeste inside the house, Matteo Santoro is consolidating power outside of it. He uses Don Alessandro's death to start swallowing Moretti assets, dock contracts, customs officials, even the Moretti charities shipping routes for humanitarian aid. And the show does this nasty thing where it shows you how crime and charity share infrastructure. There's a scene where Rosa is at the Foundation warehouse watching volunteers pack food boxes, and she realizes the trucks leaving the dock aren't all carrying food. Some are carrying guns, hidden behind pallets labeled medical supplies. And the way her face tightens is in shock. It's disgust, because she knows what her family did. She just didn't want to see it in fluorescent light with teenagers taping up boxes. Adrian, meanwhile, is spiraling in his own direction. He keeps feeding Captain Sarah Wicks tips, believing the police are the clean answer. Captain Wicks, who, by the way, is written with this brilliant moral rot from the beginning, keeps saying the right words about justice while collecting favors like coins. The actress, Tessa Cohn, plays Wicks with a kind of exhausted pragmatism that makes you trust her at first. She looks like someone who's been fighting Greyport too long and learned to make compromises. The twist is, she's not compromising to survive. She's compromising to win. And Rosa's war becomes three-front. Santoro wants her dead. Celeste wants her controlled. Wicks wants her usable. Episode 10 has the first set piece that made me sit up and go, okay, the director is not playing safe with the action language. It's the gala ambush at the Moretti Foundation's Harbor of Hope anniversary event. An event Rosa insists on attending even though her father's death has basically turned every public appearance into an assassination opportunity. She shows up anyway in this ivory dress with a high collar that screams mourning but make it wealth. And the way the lighting hits her face is so intentional. Warm spotlight on her, darkness behind the crowd. Like she's on a stage and the audience is invisible. The ambush comes disguised as a donation. A crate is wheeled in with the Santoro logo scrubbed off and replaced with a fake company name. Rosa spots it because the screws are industrial, not decorative, and she clocks the weight distribution immediately. She doesn't panic. She walks closer, smiling, talking into a microphone about community resilience, and her eyes keep flicking to the security guards. The camera keeps cutting to her lips saying pretty words, and her eyes saying, "I'm counting seconds." Then the crate explodes. Not a fiery Hollywood blast, but a concussive pop that throws splinters and smoke. Screams. Glass shattering. The sound design goes sharp, high-pitched, like tinnitus. Rosa is knocked back. And for the first time the show lets her look stunned in public. Not helpless, just genuinely impacted. And then, in the smoke, men in suits move in with guns. And this is where Gianna Ramirez does something I've rewatched twice. Rosa crawls behind a toppled table, her dress ripping at the knee, pearls scattering across the floor like dropped teeth, and she whispers, "No, no, no," not out of fear, but out of fury that they dared to bring this into her charity space. That no isn't pleading. It's ownership. She reaches under the tablecloth and pulls out a pistol taped to the underside. Yes, Rosa has been staging weapons in her philanthropic spaces. And it's gross and brilliant and thematically perfect. The same rooms where she performs goodness are now part of her battlefield. The drama isn't saying she's righteous. It's saying she's adaptive. She fires, controlled, to shots, and the men drop. People are screaming. Adrian is rushing toward her. And for 1 second, you think he's going to be her partner in the chaos until he sees the gun in her hand. He freezes. His face does this betrayed, devastated thing, like he's watching his own life story rewrite itself. Rosa looks at him and, for the first time, doesn't soften the truth. She yells, "Get down," like she's commanding a civilian. Because that's what he is to her now, a civilian. If you've ever wanted a drama to show you what it looks like when love becomes a liability in real time, that's the moment. It hurt. I'm not even being dramatic. It actually stung. The ambush ends with Rosa saving dozens of people and also publicly exposing herself as someone who knows how to shoot. The next day, Greyport's gossip machine goes feral. Talk shows. Headlines. Mauritius fires back. Charity event turns into war zone. And here's one of the craft choices I adored. The montage of media frenzy uses no music. Just overlapping voices, phone vibrations, camera shutters. It feels like assault. Like the city itself is trying to swallow her. Celeste uses that frenzy immediately. Episode 11 opens with Celeste in a boardroom with the Moratti Foundation trustees playing the calm, grieving sister figure. She proposes appointing an interim executive director for stability. And the way she says stability is like she's saying ownership. Rosa walks in late, still bruised, and Celeste doesn't even look surprised. She just smiles and says, "Rosa, we were worried." Rosa's response is ice. "You weren't worried," she says. "You were waiting." The room goes quiet because nobody's used to Rosa speaking without manners. Celeste keeps her voice sweet. "We need to reassure donors," she says. "We need to reassure the city that our mission continues." Rosa replies, "My father's mission was power. Mine is survival." That line lands because it's both honest and tragic. She's not claiming moral high ground. She's claiming necessity. And the trustees, these rich, bloodless people in beige suits, look at her like she's a problem to be managed. Which is exactly how Greyport has always looked at her. Rosa the symbol, Rosa the asset, Rosa the danger. Here's a surprising take that I think some viewers missed because Celeste is so easy to hate. Celeste isn't wrong about the foundation being unstable. She's wrong about her solution, but her instincts are real. The charity is built on dirty money and fragile optics, and Rosa, showing up with a gun, has cracked the porcelain. Celeste sees the crack and tries to take control before everything shatters. That's not admirable, but it is coherent. And that coherence is why she's such a good antagonist. Meanwhile, Captain Wicks makes a move. She visits Rosa at night, alone, in Don Alessandro's office. No uniform, just a leather jacket and a folder. Wicks lays crime scene photos on the desk, Hector Salo's body, the warehouse blood, ballistic matches. She says, "I know you're doing it." Rosa stares at the photos like they're weather reports. Wicks continues, "I can arrest you. Or I can use you." Rosa's response is a slow smile that made me say "oh" out loud, like a weirdo, in my living room. She says, "You think you're the first person to come in here and offer me a cage with better lighting?" Wicks leans forward and says, "No. I think you're the first person who might actually accept it if it lets you kill the right people." That's the thesis of Wicks. She's not interested in justice. She's interested in outcome. She wants Santoro gone because Santoro doesn't pay her. She wants the elite families exposed because they're messy. She wants Rosa as a weapon because Rosa is precise. And Rosa, at this point, is exhausted enough to consider it. Let me pull you into one of the most cinematic scenes of the whole series, because this is where the show proves it understands emotional violence as much as physical violence. Episode 12, The Rooftop Confession. Rosa meets Adrian on the rooftop of their townhouse after days of barely speaking. It's winter. The wind of the harbor is so loud you can hear it pushing through the microphones. The city lights below look smeared, like watercolor. Adrian is standing by the ledge, hands gripping the railing, and he looks smaller than he usually does. The golden boy posture is gone. He turns when she arrives and says, "Tell me the truth." Rosa walks to him slowly. Her coat flares like a cape, but the drama doesn't play it heroic. It plays it like armor. Adrian says, "Did you kill people?" Rosa doesn't blink. "Yes," she says. Adrian's eyes fill. He asks, "How many?" Rosa looks past him at the harbor and says, "Enough." Adrian's voice cracks. "And you are going to marry me," he says, like it's an accusation and a grief. Rosa finally looks at him, and there's something raw in her expression that we haven't seen much. Shame. Not for the killing, for the lying. She says, "I wanted to." Adrian laughs once, bitter. "You wanted to?" he repeats. "Rosa, that's not an answer." Rosa steps closer. "I wanted to be the version of me that could have you," she says. "I tried to starve the other version. I fed her anyway." It's poetry, yes, but it's also grounded in the performance. Gianna Ramiz says it like she hates herself for being articulate about it, like she's been holding those words under her tongue for years, and they taste like blood. Adrian's actor plays the heartbreak in layers. First disbelief, then anger, then this wounded pride. He says, "I thought I saved you." Rosa's reply is quiet and brutal. "You loved the idea of saving me," she says. "You never asked what I wanted." And here's the thing that made me unexpectedly emotional. Adrian doesn't argue. He just closes his eyes like that hit him exactly where he lives. Because it's true. And because it's the kind of truth people like Adrian can survive hearing only if they're willing to change. This drama doesn't let him stay a martyr. Then Rosa tells him about the basement. Not everything, but enough. She tells him her father trained her. She tells him she killed at 13. She tells him she stopped because she wanted to live like a person, not a weapon. Adrian's mouth opens and closes like he's trying to find language for horror that doesn't sound like judgment. And Rosa, almost tenderly, says, "If you look at me like I'm disgusting, I'll understand." Adrian looks at her and whispers, "I don't know how to look at you at all." That line. I had to pause. Because it's not melodrama. It's honest. Loving someone and then realizing you never actually knew them is a specific kind of grief. It's like your memories get re-edited against your will. And then the rooftop scene ends with the worst possible twist. Adrian admits he went to Captain Wicks. Not to betray Rosa, he insists he went because he didn't know what else to do. He says, "I asked her to protect you." Rosa's face goes still. She says, "You gave me to her." Adrian tries to reach for her hand. Rosa steps back. And this is the moment the engagement dies. Not with a scream. Not with a ring thrown. With a single sentence. Rosa says, "You keep trying to make choices for me." Adrian whispers, "I'm trying to stop you from becoming your father." Rosa replies, "You don't get to stop me. You get to leave." He does. And it's filmed like a breakup and an exile. Adrian walks toward the stairwell door, and the wind eats the sound, and Rosa stands alone on the roof with the city below like a mouth waiting to swallow her. If you thought the show was going to let Rosa be lonely in a glamorous way, no. It makes her loneliness feel cold. It makes it feel like consequence. Now the plot starts accelerating into the endgame, and it does it by widening the conspiracy. The families plotting Don Alessandro's murder aren't just Santoro. It's the respectable families too, the Devlins, the Hallstroms, the Carvalhos, who have been laundering money through redevelopment projects. Don Alessandro was old power, messy power. They wanted new power, clean, municipal, privatized. Greyport's Port Authority is being quietly sold off through shell companies. Whoever controls the port controls the city. And Don Alessandro, for all his talk of legitimacy, refused to hand over certain routes because they were his leverage. So they removed him. And they assumed Rosa was harmless now. Lace gloves, charity galas, a lady. They assumed the Reaper was gone. They should have checked her closet. Episode 13 is when Rosa finally goes full strategist. And I loved watching the drama let her intelligence be the main attraction instead of just her violence. She recruits Luca Rizzo, Don Alessandro's former enforcer, who retired to run a seafood shop at the docks. Luca is played by Marco Dane, and he brings this weary, paternal energy that makes you believe he held baby Rosa once and then watched her become something sharp. Rosa visits him at dawn while he's cleaning fish. The smell is practically visible through the screen: salt, metal, ocean rot. Rosa says, "I need you." Luca doesn't look up. He says, "No, you don't. You want someone to blame when you go too far." Rosa's jaw tightens. She replies, "I want someone who knows the old rules." Luca finally looks at her, eyes sad. "The old rules are why your father is in the ground," he says. And here comes one of the drama's best thematic threads. Rosa is trying to fight a war using the training of the old world against the tactics of the new world. The old world is guns and loyalty and blood. The new world is PR, surveillance, contracts, optics. Rosa is fluent in violence. She has to become fluent in systems. So she brings in June Park, a hacker who used to work for Moretti Shipping's logistics software and got fired for ethics. June is younger, sarcastic, and the show uses him to inject tiny moments of humor without breaking tone. There's a scene where Rosa is explaining her revenge plan in very solemn terms, and June goes, "Cool, so you want to commit felony chess." Rosa stares at him. June shrugs. "I'm just labeling the vibe," he says. I laughed. Not because it's a comedy, but because the absurdity of someone describing Rosa Moretti's blood feud as felony chess is exactly the kind of human moment that keeps the show from drowning in its own darkness. And then Rosa does something that made me genuinely respect the writing. She goes to therapy. Not as a redemption arc. Not as a cute healing montage. As reconnaissance. The Foundation hires Dr. Nia Sorrell, a trauma specialist, to support Rosa publicly after the gala attack. Rosa agrees because it looks good, and because she's curious if she can still feel anything besides anger. Dr. Sorrell is calm, observant, and not impressed by wealth. In their first session, Rosa sits with perfect posture and says, "I'm fine." Dr. Sorrell replies, "Fine people don't come with security outside my door." Rosa's lips twitch, almost amused. Dr. Sorrell continues, "You don't have to confess to me. But you do have to stop lying to yourself if you want to sleep." This subplot could have been cheesy. It isn't. It becomes a mirror that makes Rosa question her own narrative. And it also becomes one of the ways the show critiques viewers like us, because we're tempted to cheer for the Reaper. Dr. Sorrell asks Rosa, "When did you decide violence was the only language you were allowed to speak?" And Rosa doesn't answer, because the answer is, when she was a child and her father called it love. Let me rehook you again, because the next thing that happens is where the show starts doing that delicious, awful thing. It makes you doubt who the villain is in your own ship. Celeste and Adrian become complicated. Celeste, after being told by Rosa to keep the gun, begins acting like she's protecting Rosa publicly. She gives interviews saying Rosa is traumatized and needs privacy. She shields Rosa from donors. She frames herself as the stable sister holding the family together. And it works. People start liking Celeste. They start saying she's so strong. Meanwhile, Rosa becomes the scary one, the unpredictable one. Celeste is rewriting the story in real time, and the show makes it painfully believable because that's how public perception works. The quieter mask wins. Adrian, on the other hand, tries to fix his betrayal by doing something even worse. He becomes a hero again, this time by trying to take Santoro down through legal channels. He starts gathering evidence, working with Wix, believing he can be the clean solution. The tragedy is that Wix isn't clean. Vix is using Adrian as a moral shield while she plays both sides. And Adrian, desperate to be useful, keeps handing her pieces of Rosa without realizing it. Episode 14 gives us the first real glimpse of Matteo Santaro's endgame. He isn't just trying to kill Rosa. He's trying to turn her into a scapegoat. Santoro leaks a fake dossier to the press suggesting Rosa orchestrated Don Alessandro's murder to seize control. He plants evidence, shell casings, security footage of a woman in tactical gear, edited just enough to look like Rosa. And here's the nasty craft detail. The show shows us the doctored footage in a new segment, grainy and convincing, and then cuts to the real footage June uncovers, crisp and damning, proving it was manipulated. It's a commentary on how easily reality gets edited into whatever story people want. Rosa realizes she's being framed not just legally, but culturally. Greyport wants a monster. They want a story. And she fits too well. So she decides to give them a monster on her terms. The midpoint of the endgame is episode 15, and it's the most purely cinematic other drama delivers. It's the container yard night raid. This is the vivid mini-scene retelling I've been dying to talk about because it's staged like a nightmare ballet. Rosa and Luca infiltrate Pier 12 where Santoro is receiving a shipment. It's midnight. Fog is thick enough that the dock lights look like floating moons. Containers are stacked like city blocks, painted in faded reds and blues, and the whole place hums with the low mechanical whine of cranes moving in the distance. The music is minimal, just a pulse that sounds like a heartbeat inside a metal box. Rosa is in full tactical gear, hair tied back tight, face bare. No makeup, no lady mask, and the camera stays close to her shoulders again, but it occasionally swings wide to show how small she is in this mace of steel. It's important. She's lethal, but she's not invincible. The world she's fighting is bigger than her body. They move between containers, silent, footsteps muffled by wet ground. Luca signals, to fingers, then 3 guards ahead. Rosa draws her knife. Yes, knife. The show emphasizes she's not addicted to guns. She's addicted to control, and knives are quieter. She creeps up behind a guard, clamps a hand over his mouth, and there's this brief struggle, gloved fingers, a muffled grunt, and then she slips the blade under his ribs. The guard's breath hitches, warm mist in the cold air, and his eyes go wide in a way that made my stomach turn because it's not stylized. It's intimate. It's death as a close conversation. Rosa eases him down, almost gentle, and whispers, "Sleep." That whisper repeats later in the episode like a ghost, and it becomes this twisted lullaby. The child assassin voice leaking into the adult. They reach the main container where the shipment is being opened. Inside, weapons, yes, but also documents, contracts, city permits, redevelopment plans stamped with the Greyport Port Authority seal. That's the real contraband. Proof that Santoro is partnered with the respectable families. Proof that the city is selling itself. Before Rosa can photograph everything, a spotlight slams on. White light. Blinding. A voice over a loudspeaker. Rosa Moretti. The Reaper. Come out. It's Matteo Santoro, standing on a catwalk above, coat flapping in the wind like he's in an opera himself. He claps slowly. "You look better without lace," he calls down. Rosa looks up, eyes narrowed against the light, and she smiles. Not because she's amused, because she's furious. Luca hisses, "It's a trap." Rosa murmurs, "Good." She steps out into the open. The next 10 minutes are chaos. Santoro's men pour out from between containers, forming a tightening ring. Rosa and Luca fight back, but they're outnumbered. The gunfire echoes between metal walls, turning the yard into a thunderbox. Muzzle flashes strobe the fog. Rosa slides behind a container, reloads with hands that don't shake. Luca takes a hit in the shoulder, grunts, keeps moving. The camera cuts fast, but not incoherently. You always know where Rosa is in the space, which is such a rare gift in action editing. And the sound design keeps letting the bullets feel heavy. Not pew-pew. Real cracks that make you flinch. At one point, Rosa runs out of bullets. She reaches for her knife again, and Santoro's men close in. This is where Gianna Ramiz sells the animal inside Rosa. She doesn't look scared. She looks focused. Like the world narrows to an equation. Distance, timing, body. She lunges, slashes a throat, spins, blocks a bat with her forearm, takes the hit, grunts, keeps going. It's messy. She gets hurt. Blood smears across her cheek. And the show doesn't cut away from the pain. It makes you watch her earn every inch. Then, in the middle of the fight, Santoro says something that stops her for half a second. He shouts, "Your father begged." Rosa freezes. The ring tightens. Luca yells her name. Rosa shakes it off and keeps fighting, but that line lands like poison. Because it's not just taunting, it's information. It suggests Don Alessandro didn't die instantly at the opera. It suggests he had a moment of fear. And Rosa has built her grief on the idea that her father died as a king. Santoro is trying to rewrite even that. Rosa and Luca escape by doing something that feels both brilliant and insane. They climb into a container, and Luca triggers the crane mechanism remotely, causing the container to lift and swing, slamming into another stack, and creating a collapse that blocks Santoro's men. It's visually spectacular, containers crashing like falling buildings, sparks flying, fog lit by emergency lights. Rosa clings to the container's interior handle as it swings, her breath ragged, hair whipping across her face, eyes wild. For a second, it's almost surreal, like she's riding the city's infrastructure like a weapon. They drop out of the container when it lowers near the water, jump into the freezing harbor, and swim under the pier to escape. The camera follows them underwater for a few beats, green-black water, bubbles, muffled gunshots above like distant thunder. It's gorgeous. It's horrible. And when Rosa crawls out onto the rocks, soaked, shaking, and laughs, actually laughs, breathless. Because she's alive, I felt my own chest loosen in relief like I'd been holding my breath with her. That's the level of immersion this drama hits when it's firing on all cylinders. But the episode doesn't let you enjoy survival for long because Luca collapses afterward from blood loss, and Rosa has to drag him into an abandoned boathouse to stitch his shoulder. The scene is lit by a single hanging bulb, swinging slightly, and it throws moving shadows across Rosa's face like she's haunted by herself. She sterilizes a needle with a lighter flame, and the sound of the thread pulling through skin is not fun. Luca, sweaty and pale, looks at her and says, "You're not your father." Rosa doesn't answer. She ties the knot too tight, like she's punishing the wound for existing. And here's the contrarian moment I want to underline. The show's most empowering sequences are also its most punishing. Rosa's competence doesn't free her. It isolates her. Every time she proves she can survive, she loses another piece of normal. That's not a flaw in the writing. That's the point. Episode 16 pivots into pure paranoia. Santoro's trap at the yard proves he has eyes inside Rosa's circle. Someone leaked her plan. Rosa immediately suspects Celeste. Luca suspects Vix. June suspects Adrian. The show frames it like a whodunit, but emotionally it's about the cost of living without trust. There's a scene where Rosa is sitting in her dressing room, back in a gown, back in pearls, and she's staring at her own reflection like she's watching a stranger rehearse her lines. Dr. Sorrell's voice echoes from an earlier therapy session. If you don't know who you are without the mask, you'll always be vulnerable to whoever can grab it. Rosa decides to set a trap that uses her own public persona as bait. She announces a massive redevelopment gala called Greyport Renewal at the Port Authority Museum, a glass and steel building overlooking the harbor, all modern architecture meant to symbolize progress. It's funded by the foundation, endorsed by City Council, and conveniently attended by every powerful family. Santoro shows up, of course. The Devlins show up. The Hallstroms show up. Captain Wicks shows up. Adrian shows up. Celeste shows up wearing a dress that is aggressively red, like she wants to be the wound everyone stares at. And Rosa walks in like she's the bride at her own execution. Let me rehook you right before the gala goes to hell. Because the show drops its biggest character twist in the middle of all that glass and light. Adrian isn't just naive. He's been hiding something too. Not murder. Something worse for Rosa, complicity. During the gala, June hacks the museum security system from a maintenance room, feeding Rosa live camera angels through an earpiece hidden under her hairpins. The camera keeps cutting to Rosa's ear jewelry, tiny diamonds that glint like they're innocent. But they're not. They're tech. Again, femininity as camouflage. Rosa moves through the crowd, smiling, greeting donors, while her eyes flick to the camera feed reflections in mirrored walls. It's shot like a spy thriller with ballroom choreography. She corners Councilman Devlin, one of the respectable men who always praised her father's community contributions, and she gets him alone near an exhibit about Greyport's immigrant history. The exhibit is old photographs of dock workers, families, labor strikes. Rosa stands in front of it like the ghost of privilege. She says, "You signed permits for Santaro's shell companies." Devlin laughs, tries to patronize her. "Rosa, you're grieving," he says. "You're confused." Rosa's smile hardens. "I'm not confused," she says. "I'm done pretending you're untouchable." Devlin leans in and whispers, "Your father was going to sell anyway. He just wanted to pretend he had principles." Rosa's eyes flash. "He had appetites," she says. "Principles were for speeches." Devlin smirks. "Then you're just like him," he says. And that's when Rosa does something I didn't expect. She doesn't hit him. She doesn't threaten. She simply says, "I recorded that." Devlin's face drains. Because Rosa isn't just fighting with bullets now. She's fighting with evidence. She learned the new world. She moves on to Santoro. Matteo is at the center of the room like a king at court, laughing with donors, charming old ladies, acting like he's already legitimate. Rosa approaches him and offers her hand for a dance. The music is a waltz, lush strings, romantic, absurdly beautiful. Santoro's eyebrows lift. He takes her hand and says, "Is this peace?" Rosa replies, "This is honesty." They dance, and the camera circles them, slow and dizzying, while the rest of the party blurs. Rosa's face is calm. Santoro's face is amused. He says, "You're wearing your father's eyes tonight." Rosa says, "And you're wearing his blood." Santoro chuckles. "He was old," he says. "He didn't understand the city anymore." Rosa's smile tightens. "Neither do you," she says. Santoro leans in close, voice velvet. "I understand you," he whispers. "You were trained young. You were hungry. They put you in lace to make you forget you have teeth." Rosa's grip on his shoulder tightens, just slightly. Santoro continues, "You know what you are. The city knows what you are. Stop pretending you can be something else." And Rosa, in the middle of a waltz, whispers the coldest line of the series. "I can be whatever I decide." That's what you can't stand. Santoro's smile falters for the first time. Then, across the room, Adrian appears, watching them dance like he's watching a nightmare. Rosa catches his gaze over Santoro's shoulder, and something passes between them. Grief, betrayal, unfinished love. Rosa mouths, "Leave." Adrian shakes his head. He steps forward. And this is where the twist lands. Adrian approaches Captain Wicks, not Rosa. He hands Wicks a flash drive. Wicks's eyes flick down, then up. Adrian says something we don't hear, because the sound drops out under the waltz music. There's a scene where Adrian confronts Wicks in her office, shaking, furious, and Wicks looks at him like he's a child who finally noticed the world is dirty. Adrian says, "You said you wanted justice." Wicks replies, "I want order." Adrian says, "You used me." Wicks smiles. "You offered," she says. Men like you always do. That line is such a slap. And it's also annoyingly correct. Adrian's savior complex made him easy to recruit. The show is ruthless about that. Let me rehook you again, because the final stretch is where the drama gets the most morally provocative. Rosa doesn't just decide to kill Vix. She decides to expose her publicly first, even though it puts Rosa's own crimes on the table too. Rosa chooses the truth as a weapon, even if it burns her. Episode 18 is a masterpiece of tension. Rosa returns to the Moretti townhouse, not to fight, but to retrieve Don Alessandro's original ledger and the VHS tapes Celeste mentioned. She breaks in through the service entrance, like she's breaking into her own life. The house is dark, silent, too clean. The camera lingers on the family photos on the wall. Rosa in gowns, Rosa with Adrian at charity events, Celeste smiling beside them like she's always belonged. It feels like a museum of lies. Rosa moves through the kitchen, past the marble counters where Adrian used to make tea, and for a second her face softens, just a flicker of grief for the life she almost had. Then her jaw sets, and she keeps moving. Upstairs, she opens Don Alessandro's hidden cabinet and finds the tapes, labeled dates, handwritten notes. She pockets them. Then she hears a noise. Celeste is in the hallway, wearing a silk robe, hair down, looking like she walked out of a perfume ad. She holds a glass of wine and says, "You really can't stay away." Rosa raises her gun. Celeste doesn't flinch. She just sips her wine and says, "Shoot me, and you prove everyone right. Don't shoot me, and I keep winning." Rosa's voice is low. "You framed me," she says. Celeste laughs softly. "No," she replies. "I revealed you. I didn't make you a killer. I just stopped you from hiding it behind lace." Rosa steps closer. "You stole my life," she says. Celeste's smile turns bitter. "You never wanted that life," she says. "You wanted to play lady for a while and then go back to being the city's ghost. I'm the one who actually knows how to live in daylight. And here's where the writing gets mean in the best way. Celeste isn't entirely wrong. Rosa did use the lady life as camouflage. She did treat it like a costume sometimes. Celeste, for all her venom, genuinely wants the stability and legitimacy Rosa pretended to want. Celeste wants to be seen as good. Rosa wants to be effective. Those desires collide. Rosa lowers the gun slightly and says, "Where is Santoro?" Celeste's eyes glint. "Why would I tell you?" she asks. Rosa answers, "Because you want him gone too." Celeste's smile fades. "I want him controlled," she corrects. There's a difference. And then Celeste drops her biggest confession. She didn't order Don Alessandro's death, but she facilitated it. She fed Santoro information about the opera schedule. She made sure the security rotation was thin. Not because she wanted Rosa's father dead for revenge, though she did, but because she wanted Rosa unleashed. Celeste says, "I knew if he died, you'd come back. The Reaper and the city would finally see you, and Adrian would finally leave you. And then the foundation would be mine. I didn't just want your throne, Rosa. I wanted your cage, because it's nicer than mine ever was." Rosa's eyes go glossy for the first time in a long while. Not tears. Exactly. Just moisture, like her body is trying to do something human and she's refusing. She whispers, "You're sick." Celeste shrugs. "I learned from the best," she says, and the camera cuts to Don Alessandro's portrait on the wall behind them. The ghost of the father, watching his daughters destroy each other. Rosa doesn't shoot Celeste. And I know some viewers hated that. They wanted payback. They wanted catharsis. I loved that she didn't, because it shows Rosa is making a choice that isn't just reaction. Killing Celeste would be satisfying, yes, but it would also be exactly what Celeste wants. Rosa reduced to monster, Celeste martyr. Rosa sees the trap. Instead, Rosa says, "You're going to tell me everything." And she steps forward and knocks Celeste out with the butt of the gun. One clean hit. Celeste crumples. Rosa stands over her, breathing hard, and whispers, almost like she's speaking to the child she used to be, not today. That's the emotional pivot. Rosa chooses strategy over impulse. She chooses authorship over reaction. Episode 19 is the whistleblower episode, and it's one of the boldest structural swings the drama takes. Rosa releases Don Alessandro's ledger and the VHS tapes to the public through June's hacked network, but she edits them. She doesn't release everything. She releases enough to expose the corruption web, Santaro's partnership with the elite families, the Port Authority shell companies, Captain Wicks's involvement, and proof that Wicks orchestrated the museum raid to eliminate rivals. The tapes show Don Alessandro training Rosa. Yes, but Rosa frames it as evidence of child abuse, not as a cool origin story. She weaponizes vulnerability. And this is where the show does something deeply uncomfortable and, honestly, brilliant. It makes Rosa use her own trauma as propaganda. She posts a video statement, face partially shadowed, voice steady, saying, "They trained me to be a weapon and then demanded I pretend I was harmless." Greyport is built on that hypocrisy. I'm done pretending. I'm done being a lady. Time to shoot. The title line. Finally spoken. And it lands like a gunshot because it's not triumphant. It's weary. It's rage and resignation braided together. The city explodes. Protests outside the Port Authority. Donors withdraw from the foundation. The board panics. Celeste tries to hold press conferences, but the narrative is slipping out of her hands because Rosa has done the one thing Celeste couldn't. She told the story first on her own terms. Wicks tries to dismiss it as a criminal's manipulation, and the camera focuses on Rosa's face as she watches. Her smile stays in place, but her eyes sharpen. June's voice crackles in her ear. "Rosa, Adrian just gave Wicks something. I'm trying to." Gunshots cut through the music. The gala erupts. But the gunshots aren't from Santaro's men. They're from the police. Captain Wicks has ordered a raid inside the museum, and officers flood in, guns raised, shouting. People scream. Donors hit the floor. Glass shatters. The waltz music keeps playing for 3 surreal seconds before someone yanks the audio system, and it squeals into silence. Santaro vanishes into the chaos like smoke. Devlin is shoved against a wall and cuffed. Hallstrom tries to flee and is tackled. It's a purge. And Rosa realizes Wicks is using the raid to remove all her rivals in one clean sweep. And then pin the violence on Rosa. Because the officers are specifically looking for her. Wicks steps into Rosa's line of sight across the room, eyes locked, and she mouths two words with a smile, "Thank you." Not to Rosa, to Adrian. That's when the truth clicks into place. Adrian didn't just go to Wicks for protection. He made a deal. He gave Wicks evidence, real evidence, of Rosa's killings in exchange for Wicks taking down Santaro and the corrupt families. Adrian thought he was choosing the lesser evil. He thought he was saving the city. He thought he was saving Rosa from herself. And the show lets you see the exact second Rosa's heart breaks into something harder. Here's my honest reaction. I got mad. Like, actually mad at a fictional man. I had to stand up and pace again. Because the show doesn't frame Adrian as a mustache-twirling traitor. It frames him as the most dangerous kind of betrayer. The kind who thinks he's righteous. Rosa runs. The museum sequence is shot like a glass labyrinth. Reflections everywhere. Officers shouting. Red emergency lights flashing. Rosa's heels click on marble as she sprints, then she kicks them off mid-run because she's not playing the lady anymore. She darts behind exhibits, sliding under velvet ropes, using the museum's history displays as cover like it's battlefield terrain. The camera keeps catching her reflection split into fragment in the glass. Rosa the lady, Rosa the reaper, Rosa the orphan, Rosa the weapon, until you can't tell which version is real. June is feeding her escape routes through the earpiece, voice panicked. Luca is outside in a van ready to pull her out. And then Celeste appears in the corridor ahead, blocking the path like a ghost in a red dress. Celeste's eyes are wide, not with fear, but with exhilaration. She says, "Look at you." Rosa stops short, chest heaving. Celeste continues, "They're finally seeing you." Rosa snarls, "Move." Celeste steps closer, lowering her voice. "I can help you," she whispers. "Give me the foundation. Give me the public life. And you can go be whatever you are in the dark." Rosa laughs once, sharp. "So that's what this is," she says. "You don't want justice. You want my throne." Celeste's face hardens. "It was never yours," she hisses. "You were just born into it." And then Celeste does something that made me audibly gasp. She reaches into her clutch and pulls out Rosa's gun. The one from the closet. The one she stole. She points it not at Rosa, at the ceiling, and fires. The shot echoes like a cannon in the corridor. Officers immediately pivot toward the sound. Celeste looks at Rosa with a smile that is almost tender in its cruelty. "Run," she says. "Or don't. Either way, you'll finally be famous." Rosa's face goes blank with a kind of rage that feels ancient. She turns and runs the opposite direction, not because she's afraid, but because she refuses to give Celeste the satisfaction of watching her fall. The museum escape ends with Rosa smashing through a service door into the loading dock area, slipping on wet concrete, grabbing a janitor's coat from a cart, and blending into the chaos long enough to reach Luca's van. The van peels off into the night with sirens behind them, and the camera stays on Rosa's face as city lights streak across the window. Her lips are parted, breathing hard, eyes bright, not with tears, with calculation. Because once you've been hunted by the law, you stop playing games. Episode 17 opens with Rosa officially becoming Greyport's public enemy. Wicks holds a press conference blaming an armed assailant connected to the Moretti family for the museum violence. She doesn't say Rosa's name directly, but she might as well. The media runs with it. The city turns. The Moretti Foundation board votes Celeste as interim director for stability. Adrian appears in a photo beside Wicks and Devlin in cuffs, framed as a hero who helped expose corruption. Santoro, mysteriously, is not among the arrested, and Rosa is in hiding. The hideout is an abandoned lighthouse keeper's house on the edge of Greyport, cold and stripped down, with peeling paint and a constant ocean wind that sounds like whispering. Luca brings supplies. June brings laptops. Dr. Sorrel, in a move I didn't expect but ended up loving, finds Rosa there, not to report her, but to confront her. Dr. Sorrel says, "You can keep running, or you can decide what you want to be when the city stops telling your story." Rosa stares at her and says, "I want them to stop." Dr. Sorrel replies, "That's not an identity. That's a reaction." This is where the show's theme sharpens. Rosa's entire life has been a response to other people's choices. Her father trained her. The city whispered. Adrian assumed. Celeste resented. Wicks used. Santoro hunted. Rosa's revenge risks being just another reaction. So the end game becomes not only take down the killers, but claim authorship. And that's when Rosa decides to go after the one person who has been quietly orchestrating everything, Captain Sarah Wicks. Because June uncovers the missing piece. In the hacked port authority contracts, Wicks's name appears, not as a cop, but as a silent partner in the redevelopment shell companies. The police raids weren't justice. They were market manipulation. Wicks used Adrian's evidence to clean out her competition and consolidate control of Greyport's port through legitimate channels, while letting Santoro slip away because Santoro is useful as a bogeyman. A controlled villain keeps the city afraid. Fear keeps people compliant. And Adrian? Adrian realizes too late he gave a corrupt cop a weapon. The final 2 episodes are a spiral into violence that feels inevitable, but not cheap. Santoro kidnaps Dr. Sorrel to lure Rosa out, because Dr. Sorrel has become the only person who speaks to Rosa without trying to own her. This kidnapping is such a sharp thematic move. Santoro targets Rosa's one non-transactional relationship. He wants to prove Rosa is still controllable through pain. He sends Rosa a message. A photo of Dr. Sorrel bound in a shipping container, mouth taped, eyes calm but terrified. The container number is visible. A timestamp. A location. Pier 7. Rosa stares at the photo in the lighthouse house, and you see something in her face that we haven't seen since her father died. Panic. Real panic. Her breath quickens. Her hands shake once. Luca watches her and says, "This is how they get you. They pull your heart out and use it as bait." Rosa whispers, "Then I'll go with my teeth out." And I'm sorry, but that line? That's the kind of feral poetry this show earns, because it's not random. It's who Rosa is when she stops pretending to be civilized. We are in the final stretch now, and the craft goes hard. The color palette turns colder, almost monochrome, as if the city is being drained of warmth. The music brings back the opera motif from Don Alessandro's death, but distorted, slowed, like a record melting. It's Greyport's original betrayal song, returning for the last act. Rosa goes to Pier 7 alone at first, because of course she does. She can't risk Luca or June getting caught. The pier is empty, wine screaming, water slapping against pylons. Containers stacked like tombs. Rosa moves through them like she's entering a church built for violence. She finds the container number. The door is sealed with a new padlock. Rosa cuts it with bolt cutters. The sound is loud, metallic, final. She swings the door open. Inside, Dr. Sorrel is there, but she's not bound. She's sitting on a folding chair, hands free, face bruised, eyes wide. And before Rosa can process what that means, the container door slams shut behind her. Trap. Lights flick on inside the container. Harsh, glaring. And there's Santoro, sitting in the corner like a man waiting for a show to start. He claps slowly. "There she is," he says. The city's favorite ghost. Rosa raises her gun. Santoro raises his hands, smiling. "Go ahead," he says. "Shoot. But then you'll never hear the truth." Rosa's voice is a growl. "What truth?" Santoro tilts his head. "Who really ordered your father's death?" he says. Rosa's eyes narrow. "You did," she snaps. Santoro chuckles. "I pulled the trigger," he corrects. "But I didn't write the invitation." And then he looks past Rosa at Dr. Sorrel and says, "Tell her." Dr. Sorrel's face tightens with dread. She whispers, "Rosa, I'm sorry." Rosa turns slowly, confusion flashing for the first time in a long time. Dr. Sorrel continues, voice shaking, "Wicks made me do it. She threatened my license, my family. She wanted you to trust me. She wanted access to you. She wanted to know how you think." This is the final knife twist. Captain Wicks planted Dr. Sorrel. Not to heal Rosa, but to study her, predict her, and eventually manipulate her. The therapy sessions weren't safe space. They were surveillance with empathy as camouflage. And listen, I know some people felt betrayed by this plot move because it corrupts the one pure relationship Rosa had. I get it. But I also think it's painfully consistent with the drama's worldview. In Greyport, everything is transactional unless you fight to make it otherwise. Wicks couldn't control Rosa through force, so she tried to control her through intimacy. That's terrifyingly real. Rosa's face goes slack for a second, like her brain is buffering. Then the rage comes in, hot and immediate. She turns her gun towards Santoro again. But Santoro leans forward and says, "You see now? We're not so different. We both use what people give us." Rosa spits, "You kidnapped her." Santoro shrugs. "Wicks gave me the location," he says. "A trade. I get you in a box." She gets to clean the city. Because yes, Wicks is orchestrating this final too. She wants Santoro and Rosa to kill each other, so she can emerge as the clean victor. She wants the Port Authority, the city, the narrative. She wants to be the only power left. Let me rehook you one last time before the endgame violence detonates. Rosa's final choice is not whether she kills Santoro. It's whether she becomes a tool again, this time for Wicks's order, or whether she breaks the whole board even if it ruins her. Rosa lowers her gun, not in surrender, in calculation. She looks at Dr. Sorrel, and her voice softens in a way that made my throat tighten. "Did you ever mean any of it?" she asks. Dr. Sorrel's eyes fill. "Yes," she whispers. "I did. I do. I'm sorry." Rosa nods once, like she's filing that away as truth she can still use. Then she looks at Santoro and says, "Open the door." Santoro laughs. "And let you walk out?" he asks. Rosa replies, "No, let you walk out." Santoro's smile fades. Rosa continues, "You want to tell me the truth? Here it is. You're not the monster Greyport needs. You're just a man who thinks fear is power. But fear is cheap. Everyone has it." Santoro's eyes narrow. Rosa leans in slightly and says, "If you want to scare me, you'll have to offer me something I actually want." Santoro's jaw tightens. "And what do you want?" he asks. Rosa answers, "A choice." Then she shoots the container's light. Darkness. The sound design goes insane here, in the best way. You hear breathing, fabric shifting, a scuffle, a punch landing, someone hitting the wall. Santoro curses. Rosa's boots scrape metal. The camera stays close, chaotic, lit only by tiny slivers of light through bullet holes and seams. It's claustrophobic and animalistic, like watching predators fight in a cage. Rosa doesn't try to kill Santoro immediately. She tries to get Dr. Sorrel out. She grabs Dr. Sorrel's wrist, whispers, "Stay behind me," and guides her toward the door. Santoro lunges, catches Rosa's shoulder, and they slam into the container wall. Rosa grunts, elbows him in the throat, and Santoro stumbles back, wheezing, furious. And then the container door opens. Not because Santoro unlocked it, because Captain Wicks's officers cut it open from outside. Floodlights blast in, blinding. Officers swarm, guns raised. Wick steps into the light, hair slicked back, expression calm as a surgeon. "Rosa Moretti," she says, voice amplified by megaphone like she's announcing a public execution. "Drop the weapon." Rosa stands at the container doorway, dripping sweat, blood on her cheek, gun in hand, Dr. Sorrel behind her. Santoro is on the floor inside, coughing, glaring. Vic smiles slightly. "Look at that," she says. "The Reaper and the Dog King in the same box. How convenient." Rosa looks at Wicks and says, loud enough for the officers and the cameras Wicks has brought, "You set this up." Wicks shrugs. "I set up order," she replies. "Greyport is tired of your families. It's tired of your wars. It wants peace." Rosa laughs. Bitter. "Peace?" she repeats. "You mean control." Wicks lifts her megaphone again. "Drop the weapon," she again, slower this time, like she's saving it. Rosa glances down at Santoro, then back at Wicks. And here's where the final makes its gutsy moral move. Rosa drops the gun. Not because she's surrendering, because she's baiting. Wick steps forward, satisfied, and signals her officers to move in. Two officers grab Santoro, drag him out. Wicks approaches Rosa, cuffs ready. And Rosa says, quietly, "Smile for the cameras." Wicks pauses. Rosa continues, "You wanted the city to see a monster. So you brought cameras. You brought lights. You brought witnesses." Wicks narrows her eyes. Rosa says, "Good, because now they'll see you." June, from a van parked half a mile away, hijacks the floodlight camera feed and broadcasts it live to every screen in Greyport, the same way Rosa's video statement spread. The drama shows us bars, living rooms, the Port Authority lobby, phones in hands, all watching this standoff in real time. And then Rosa speaks directly into the camera lens, like she's delivering a confession and an indictment at once. She says, Captain Sarah Wicks is in the Port Authority redevelopment shell companies. She orchestrated raids to remove competition. She planted a therapist to monitor me. She brokered deals with Santoro. Wicks's face tightens. She tries to grab Rosa's arm. Rosa yanks away and keeps speaking. She used Adrian Cuddy's evidence to stage a purge and call it justice. She is not peace. She is the next war. Vic snaps, finally losing her calm. She shouts, "Shut her up." An officer moves toward Rosa. And in that split second, Luca, hidden among dock workers nearby, fires a shot, not at Wicks, but at the officer's gun hand. The gun drops. Chaos ripples through the line. Wicks whirls, furious. Rosa uses the chaos to grab Wicks's megaphone and slam it into Wicks's face. The sound is sickening. Wicks stumbles back, blood on her lip, eyes blazing. Rosa grabs Wicks's collar and drags her toward the camera, forcing her into frame like a captured confession. And Rosa says, voice shaking with rage and something like grief, "You wanted to own me like my father did. You wanted to use me like Santoro did. I'm done being a tool." Vic spits blood and laughs. "You think you're free?" She hisses. "You're still a killer. You'll always be a killer." Rosa's eyes burn. "Yes," she says, "and you'll always be a thief. At least I don't hide behind a badge." Then Wicks does the thing that proves Rosa right. She pulls her own sidearm and shoots Santoro in the head. Point blank. Right there, on camera, with officers and citizens watching. The sound drops out for a beat. Santoro's body jerks and goes slack. Blood hits the dock planks, dark and fast. Vic stands over him, chest heaving, and in that moment the mask slips completely. She isn't order. She's violence with paperwork. The city sees it. And Wicks realizes she just showed her true face to everyone. Her eyes flick to the cameras, panic flashing. She turns the gun toward Rosa. Rosa moves faster. She slams Wicks's gun arm into the container edge, disarming her, and they grapple to women fighting for the story of Creport. The choreography here is brutal and grounded. Hair pulling, elbows, knees, bodies hitting steel. Wicks is strong, trained, but Rosa is. Rosa. She's been fighting since she was 13. She headbutts Wicks, and Wicks staggers, dazed. Rosa grabs Wicks by the back of the neck and forces her to her knees in front of the camera. And this is where Gianna Ramiz does the most terrifying calm voice of the series. Rosa says, "Tell them." Wicks spits, "Go to hell." Rosa tightens her grip slightly and repeats, "Tell them." Wicks's eyes flick to the officers, to the cameras, to the city watching. For the first time, she looks small. She whispers, "I did what I had to do." Rosa leans down and says, "So did I." Then Rosa picks up Wicks's gun. And the episode holds on her face for a long, long moment. Wine screaming, sirens in the distance, camera streaming, the entire city watching to see whether the Reaper will execute a cop on live feed. My stomach was in my throat. I'm not even kidding. This drama earned that tension because it made the choice feel like it would define Rosa forever. Rosa raises the gun, and she shoots, not Wicks. She shoots the floodlight rig above them, shattering it. Sparks rain down. The cameras flicker. The live feed glitches. In the confusion, Luca drags Dr. Sorrel away. June cuts the stream. Officers scatter. Wicks scrambles to her feet, coughing, enraged. Rosa disappears into the dark like a ghost reclaiming her habitat. It's such a wild anti-catharsis, and I loved it. Because Rosa refuses to give the city the execution spectacle it craves. She refuses to give Wicks martyrdom. She refuses to be framed as the monster on someone else's stage. She chooses to vanish again on her terms. Now, that isn't the end of the story's consequences, and the drama doesn't pretend it is. The final episode deals with fallout in a way that feels surprisingly grounded for a show that includes container yard cage matches. Wicks is arrested, not immediately by her own officers, of course, because institutional protection is real, but by federal investigators who arrive after June leaks the shell company paperwork and the live feed clip of Wicks killing Santoro. Adrian is publicly disgraced for his involvement with Wicks, even though he genuinely thought he was doing good. Celeste loses the foundation when donors flee and the board fractures. But she manages to spin herself as another victim of the Moratti war in interviews, because of course she does. She is a survivor. She is a liar. She is both. Rosa, still wanted for multiple crimes, becomes a myth again, except now the myth is split. Some people call her a murderer. Some call her a vigilant. Some call her a product of abuse. And the show refuses to settle the debate because that would be dishonest. Rosa is all of those things. The point is that she finally stops caring what the city calls her. There's a scene near the end that I can't shake because it's so quiet after so much violence. Rosa meets Adrian one last time at the harbor. Early morning, fog rolling in, gulls screaming. Adrian looks wrecked. No suit, unshaven, eyes hollow. He stands with his hands in his pockets like a man trying to make himself smaller. Rosa approaches from the mist in a hoodie and jeans, looking almost ordinary, which is a mind game in itself. Adrian says, "Is it over?" Rosa looks at the water and says, "Nothing is ever over in Greyport." Adrian's eyes fill. "I'm sorry," he whispers. Rosa nods once. "I know," she says. And that's the cruelest part. She believes he is sorry. She also knows it doesn't fix anything. Adrian steps closer, voice breaking. "I loved you," he says. Rosa finally looks at him, and there is softness there that made my chest ache because it proves she isn't empty. "She's just Amod," she says. "You loved the version of me that made you feel clean." Adrian flinches. Rosa continues, "Gentler than I expected. That's not nothing." But it wasn't enough. Adrian asks, "What are you going to do?" Rosa's mouth twitches, almost a smile. "Shoot," she says, deadpan, and then she adds, "and sometimes, not shoot." It's a small line, almost humorous, but it lands like a mission statement. Rosa isn't choosing peace. She's choosing agency. She's choosing to decide, each time, who she is. Then she turns to leave, and Adrian says her name, Rosa, like he wants to anchor her. Rosa pauses, doesn't turn around, and says, "Stop assuming you get to keep me." And she walks into the fog. The final images of the series are gorgeous and bleak. Rosa returns to the lighthouse house, opens the closet there. Yes, the show mirrors the closet motif. And inside is her gear, neatly folded, gun oiled, case closed. But beside it is something new, a box of passports with different names, different countries. June's work, Luca's connections, the infrastructure of disappearance. Rosa touches the passports like they're options. And then, instead of taking the gear, she takes a notebook. She sits at the kitchen table, pours herself tea, Adrian's ritual, now hers, and starts writing. Names, dates, systems, targets. Not just people, networks. It's the quietest ending possible for a show with this much blood. And it's terrifying because it suggests Rosa has evolved. She's no longer a reactive weapon. She's a strategist with a poise she defined herself. Okay, now let me talk craft and performances a bit more deeply. Because if we're doing a full spoiler review, I need to give credit where it's due. And also call out the couple places where the show stumbled for me because I loved it, but I didn't love it blindly. Gianna Ramiz as Rosa is the spine of this entire drama. And what she nails is the difference between coldness and control. A lesser performance would have played Rosa as emotionless to seem strong. Ramiz plays her as someone who feels too much and therefore rationed her emotions like ammunition. You see it in the way she holds her jaw when she's angry, like she's physically containing herself. You see it in the micro-smiles she uses socially, smiles that never reach her eyes. And when the mask cracks, it's not a sudden personality switch. It's leakage. Tiny leaks. A breath too sharp. A blink too slow. A hand that hovers near her hip where a gun would be even when she's in a gown. That continuity is what makes Rosa feel like a real person living two lives, not a trope. Callum Wayne as Adrian also deserves more credit than he's getting in the "I hate Adrian" discourse. Yes, Adrian betrays Rosa. Yes, I wanted to grab him by the shoulders and shake him. But Wayne plays Adrian's savior complex as something that's almost subconscious. Adrian genuinely believes he's the moral center, and the performance lets you see how comforting that belief is to him. When that belief collapses, he looks like a man losing oxygen. There's a scene after the museum raid where Adrian is alone in his office, staring at his own reflection in a dark computer monitor, and he whispers, "What did I do?" Like he's asking God. That moment is small, but it's the beginning of Adrian's self-awareness. The show doesn't fully redeem him, and it shouldn't, but it does let him become human rather than symbolic. Celeste's actress, Sloane Ibarra, plays the hardest role in the show because Celeste could have easily been reduced to jealous snake. Ibarra gives her such specific hunger. The way Celeste watches people is almost sensual, like attention is how she feeds. And when she finally confesses to facilitating Don Alessandro's death, she doesn't cry. She doesn't gloat either. She looks relieved, like she's been holding the truth in her mouth until her cheeks hurt. That's not cartoon villainy. That's pathology born from years of smiling while being powerless. Tessa Kwon as Captain Wicks is, frankly, delicious. She plays authority like a performance. Her voice is always just a little too calm, like she's narrating her own hero story. And when she finally kills Santoro on camera, the way her face shifts from controlled to feral for half a second before she tries to pull the mask back on, that's the moment you realize Wicks isn't some mastermind above emotion. She's just another person addicted to power. The badge was her lace glove. Visually, the show's best choice is its commitment to contrast. The lady scenes are lit warm, soft, often with shallow depth of field that makes the background blur into a pleasing hedge, like Rosa's world is curated for comfort. The Reaper scenes are sharp, high contrast, with harsher shadows and more texture. You see sweat. You see pores. You see grime. And then the show begins blending those looks as Rosa's identities collide. By the time you hit the museum gala, the lighting is all glass reflections and fractured brightness, which is the perfect metaphor for Rosa being visible and hunted simultaneously. The music is also smarter than it needed to be. The piano motif associated with Rosa's Lady Cell starts innocent, simple, delicate. But as episodes go on, it becomes more dissonant, minor key, with little percussive taps that sound like fingers on a gun case. The opera motif becomes a curse, returning whenever betrayal is dressed as culture. And during the container yard raid, the score strips down to heartbeat percussion, making the action feel bodily rather than cinematic. Now, where did it stumble? For me, there were two moments where the plot machinery was slightly too convenient. One is June's hacking abilities occasionally bordering on magic. I love June, I love what he brings. But there's a point where he's hacking municipal camera feeds, port authority contracts, and live broadcast signals like he's swatting flies. And I wanted the show to give us one more obstacle, one more failure, just to keep the tension honest. The second is the Dr. Sorrel twist being a Wicks plant. I think it's thematically consistent, but it risks making every tender moment Rosa had feel contaminated retroactively. The show mitigates that by having Dr. Sorrel genuinely care for Rosa anyway, but it's still a gamble. It worked for me emotionally because it made Rosa's decision to protect Dr. Sorrel in the container fight feel even more meaningful. Rosa chooses compassion even when compassion was weaponized against her. But I completely understand why some viewers felt robbed. And since we're being real, the title. I know, it's a ridiculous title. It sounds like something you'd see on a novelty mug. But after watching the series, I kind of adore how blunt it is. Because Rosa's journey isn't subtle. It's a woman who is done performing softness for people who profit from it. It's a woman reclaiming the violence she was trained into, and then trying to steer it into something like purpose. The title is crass because the world is crass. Greyport isn't poetic. Greyport is a knife fight in a ballroom. One thing I keep coming back to is how the show handles femininity, not as weakness or strength, but as language. Rosa's lace gloves aren't just aesthetic. They're armor. They're also a lie. Celeste's red dress isn't just sexy. It's aggression. Vix's badge isn't just authority. It's camouflage. Everyone is performing something to survive. And Rosa's done being a lady moment isn't her rejecting femininity. It's her rejecting the obligation to be harmless. If you're a newcomer to this kind of drama, you might watch it as a revenge story with stylish action. And yes, it absolutely scratches that itch. But if you're watching as a critic, the more interesting layer is the way it interrogates who gets to be violent in public. Greyport tolerates violence when it's hidden behind institutions. It tolerates corrupt cops. It tolerates redevelopment theft. It tolerates family dynasties laundering money through charity. What it can't tolerate is a woman refusing to be legible. Rosa, being both lady and reaper, breaks the city's narrative categories. That's why they try to frame her. They need her to be either victim or villain, not both. And I'll admit something mildly embarrassing. I didn't expect to care this much about the emotional cost. I came in ready to enjoy the she was pretending. Now she's back in tactical gear fantasy. And the show does deliver that satisfaction. Rosa in black gear, moving through foglit docks, is iconic. But the thing that stayed with me after the final wasn't the kills. It was Rosa sitting alone with a cup of tea, writing names in a notebook like she's building a new identity one line at a time. That image is quiet and it's haunted, and it made me feel sad for her in a way I wasn't prepared for. Because the victory isn't clean. It can't be. She's alive, she's in control, but she's also exiled from normal. And the show refuses to lie to you about what that costs. Now, because this is Flick Flair, and I know you guys love when I get a little spicy, I actually think some viewers misread Celeste as worse than Santoro just because she's personally cruel. Santoro is a classic crime lord villain. He's expected. Celeste violates the intimacy of family, so she feels more shocking. But in terms of systemic harm, Vix is the real final boss. Vix represents the way institutions absorb criminal tactics and call it order. She's the one who can keep doing damage quietly for years. Santoro dies, Devlin falls, the families scatter. But Vix would have rebuilt the same machine with new names if Rosa hadn't exposed her. And that's why the live feed moment matters more than any shootout. It's not catharsis. It's documentation. It's power shifting through narrative. Also, tiny self-aware aside, I love that the show made Adrian a tea guy. It's such a specific good man signal. And then it becomes the symbol of ritualized morality, how Adrian thinks the right gestures can cleanse the wrong systems. As someone who also makes tea when stressed, I did not appreciate being personally attacked by this writing choice. Anyway, one last thing about the ending that I think is important. Rosa choosing not to execute Vix on camera is not her becoming good. It's her refusing to be used. It's her refusing to let the city turn her into content. Because Greyport wanted a spectacle. They wanted the Reaper to confirm the rumor. Rosa denies them that confirmation while still being exactly who she is. That's a more interesting kind of power than pulling a trigger. So where do I land on done being a lady time to shoot overall? I loved it, with a couple caveats. And I think it's the rare revenge drama that understands revenge isn't just a plot. It's a personality shaped by other people's violence. It's a show that gives you the satisfaction of tactical gear and payback, while making you sit in the ugliness of how that payback is built. And the last image, Rosa writing in that notebook, passports beside her, gear folded like a sleeping animal, sets up a second season in a way that doesn't feel like a cheap tease. It feels like a threat, not to Greyport, to the whole idea that Rosa can ever be put back in lace and told to smile again. Because she already tried that. And this time, the closet is stocked, the gun is oiled, and the lady mask is just one more tool she knows how to use when it serves her. If you made it all the way through my ramble, you're officially part of the problem with me. And I mean that with love. Drop your take in the comments. Did Rosa's final choice feel like growth, or just a different kind of control? And where did you land on Celeste? Pure villain,